Hello and welcome to the House Call Auto Repair channel. Today we've got a 2006 Buick Lucerne that we're going to be going and doing a front brake job on, which is just brake pads and rotors. This gentleman is a United States Navy veteran. He's currently out of town working for the Veterans Administration, helping other veterans. So we're going to be helping him out today with front brakes and rotors. And we have a 2006 Buick Lucerne. We have a note, the keys, payment, rotors, brake pads, receipt, and some very glazed rotors. Well, we got the box of tools ready. You got the jack stand ready, clamp, pet trainer so we don't make a mess of the garage floor, a couple of the tools that we need, brake cleaner, grease, anti-seize, the hub buddy, wire brush, a little brush to sweep up the floor, and our jack. Let's get this thing up in the air and get the wheel off. Now this vehicle has the chrome cap lug nuts, and they're already a little bit damaged, so we're going to try to go kind of nice on these. Make sure that we get the jack right underneath the very strong part where it's not going to go anywhere, so we're going to put those bolts right there, and we're going to jack the car up by that. Go ahead and get the hood popped. Figure out where the hood release is. There it is. Alright. Just enough pressure to hold it. And we're going to inspect the fluid, and that fluid looks really black. Yep, that fluid's black. So here's my setup for draining out the master cylinder. Got the recovery bottle, suction hose, draw. We've got a trap right here to make sure we don't get any brake fluid into the vacuum pump. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the master cylinder, and we're going to suck the old brake fluid out of it. Now before we even get started, we're going to top it back off with some fresh brake fluid, and it's always a good idea to have a little flashlight handy while you're doing this. Right here with the flashlight, you can see through the container, and you can see where your fluid level is. And when the fluid's clear, it's really hard to tell exactly where it is. It's coming up to the max line now. And we're right at the max line. Alright, so we're all done up here. Cover back on, and back to the brakes at hand. Now, one of the first things we want to do is make sure that our work area is clean, so we're going to sweep some of the debris out of the way here. space all nice and clean. And then we'll go ahead and put the pet trainer down. Right here, if we do spill anything, we don't get it on the floor. Transfer all the tools over here. Alright, now that we've got most of the tools over here, let's start getting this broken down. Got the 13 millimeter for the bracket bolts. We've got a 15 millimeter that holds the bracket to the spindle. We've got a 10 millimeter to open up the bleed screw. Another 13 millimeter just in case we have to exert force on it, because the gear wrenches you don't want to put pressure on because you can break them. So yeah, let's get this broke down. We're on the jack stand now. Pretty much everything we need is right here. Now, first thing we're going to do is start cracking all of these bolts loose. So just grab the 13 millimeter box end, and we're going to grab a little cheater and use a 10 millimeter for the cheater on this. Okay, those were not over tightened. That's good. This car was worked on quite a bit by a local shop, and I've already found a few things in this that I'm not particularly happy with. Like somebody just chopped off rusted out brake lines, and they ran, let me show you this, they ran new brake lines across from the ABS pump down here. They ran these lines right here, right up and over the top of the transmission, right down underneath the back of the car down there. This is not professional by any means. This is do it as cheaply as absolute possible. Enough of the squirrel nonsense. Let's get back to task at hand. That one's loose. That one's loose. Let's get this one in here loosened up. And this was from Bill and Peabody. Replaced this wrench for me, which was really appreciated. A lot of you guys out here have been treating me pretty good. I kind of like it. I could definitely use some more subscribers though, so please feel free to share this. And I'm going to let you guys help me out with this one, because he doesn't know this yet. He's getting this done for free. He bought the parts, but I'm doing the labor for him because, well, he served this country and he's still serving this country, so I'm going to give him what I can for help so that he can continue to help the other veterans. Alright, that's all loose. Let's get the bleed bottle over here, and I can squeeze back the caliper and get the old fluid out of it. Already we're running into a problem. The 10 millimeter doesn't work on the bleed screw anymore. That's a little bit too rusted away, so we're going to clamp onto this. Oh, that doesn't want to move. This is going to be fun. Time to grab the hammer. Get brake fluid coming out now. Let's get the hose on it before I drip it all over the ground. Alright, now we can go ahead and slowly push these pistons back just a little bit for now. All we want to do is just push them back, make sure that our slide pins work and that both of our pistons move without any difficulty. I gotta figure out where I put my C-clamp. Alright, found the C-clamp right on the other side of me. Right here. Okay. Now we're going to start pushing a little of the fluid back. Again, now the purpose for this is we're making sure that this piston is okay. They've got a little bit of movement. Brake fluid's going through nice and easy. Pins moving nice and easy. I don't want to push all the way because I want to make sure I clean the boot off before I push the pistons back in. So let's get down here, make sure that the bottom is okay. Fluid's coming out nice and easy. Bottom pad's moving nice and easy. Pins moving nice and easy. That means we're not going to be having any problems with the caliper or the slide pins. So this is basically just going to be a quick, easy, routine maintenance. Clean it up, put the new parts on, and get over to the other side. Alright. So let's finish breaking this down. I got a hook right here to hang the caliper up off of the spring. So let's get this broke down, put them down on the pet trainer. Alright, and we're gonna get this over here on the hook and get it up high enough where it's not hanging on the hose. I'll leave all of this hooked up to the bottle for now and concentrate on just this. Our brake pads are worn very unevenly, at least on the inboard. Just starting to go metal to metal on the inboard, on the top. The bottom of it's got 3 millimeters. Yeah, she's stuck in the bracket. Outer one is not stuck in the bracket, but the inner one is. And this was a professionally done brake job the last time these brakes were done. But in any case, let's get this outer or inner brake pad out of here. Maybe. Yeah, it's stuck. Welcome to the salt belt, people. This is what happens. This is why we have to do brakes in a completely different way around here. Otherwise, this happens every single time. They get completely stuck. The ears bond right to the hardware clips. Just for ha-has. There's very uneven. Let's get this clip out of here. See how the clip is all rusty and it's all chewed up and divoted? That's because these brake pads got stuck. And they got stuck because of the rust that develops on this caliper bracket. We're also going to take care of that. Alright, now let's get these caliper bracket bolts out of here. They're coming out fairly easy. It looks like there's grease or oil on these threads, which is a no-no. So don't use lubricant on your threads, especially parts that hold your stopping devices together. Let's get this bracket out. Clean up these surfaces here as well. That pin sounds awful dry to me. It also feels stuck. And this one here is stuck in this little rubber bushing. This isn't too bad, but let's get this cleaned up. Oh, yuck, all the rust falling out. And I need to go grab my gloves. Let's get this rotor off the rest of the way. Oh, I see the rings and the discoloration. He drives over the mountain on a very regular basis to the VA hospital, and these rotors take quite a bit of heat going up and over the mountain. The good old infamous Mohawk Trail. And we're gonna have to clean all of this up too. Make that look nice and new. The very first thing we're gonna do is spray this down with some brake cleaner in case there's any residual oil or anything like that on it. Rinse the oil out of it. It also makes it a lot easier for the hub buddy to clean that surface up. So let's grab the hub buddy. Just this tool right here. Goes on the 1/2-inch impact. And this goes right over the wheel studs. Helps if I get this straight. You can only go in one direction with this. Sorry about that, and I was going the wrong way. They're nice and clean. Right now we're going to start getting the spaces in between. We want to make sure that there's no rust, scale, contamination, or anything that's going to get stuck in between this surface and the brand new rotor. Alright, we'll spray a little bit of brake cleaner on it again. And we'll go over it one more time just to make it extra clean. Now also make sure that you want to get this landing right here as well that your caliper bracket goes onto. Let's get it all nice and clean. Once everything here is clean, we're going to take some fluid film, the anti-corrosive, and we're just going to give it a light coating here and here, as well as this surface here. Very, very, very light coating. The last thing you want to do is have so much of this on here that it ends up coming up into your rotor. Now let's go get the brand new rotor and get it cleaned up and put on. We're going to take the old rotor and the new rotor. Open up the new rotor. It's going to be coated with an oil that's going to help keep it from rust while it sits on the store shelf. And what we're going to do now is we're going to compare these two rotors, make sure that they're the same. Make sure they're the exact same diameter. Make sure they're the same thickness. Make sure that the hat height is the same, and the way you do that is by holding the two rotors against each other this way. If they sit flat, they're the same. Make sure the hat is the same. So let's get this cleaned up, get the oil off of it, and get this onto the car. All the oil that protects this off of here, because if you don't, it'll get burnt into your brake pads and it'll glaze your brake pads. You can really rinse it down with this if you want, but it's actually kind of wasteful. This other side again. Get the rotor put back on. So you got the one screw hole right here. However, we don't have the screw, but we're going to line it up anyways. And I'm going to use the hole that balances out directly with it. I'm going to set this on like so. And we're going to take one lug nut and we're going to put one lug nut on it. We're going to go opposite where the caliper bracket's going to go. And just spin that nut all the way on. If the nut won't reach all the way on, use a large axle nut or something to sit underneath it. And that'll hold your rotor in place so it doesn't go anywhere. Now we can start concentrating on the caliper bracket itself. This is where all the attention really needs to be put. This has to be done immaculately or it will cause problems. So now we got to get these pins out of here. That's going to be a little bit fun. completely frozen in there, but I have a feeling they have little rubber sleeves on them, and those little rubber sleeves are holding them in place. Yeah, wow. Okay, that has a rubber pin on the bottom of it. These definitely have not been greased. This was done by a professional garage. This has no grease. I'm actually kind of glad that the garage closed. I mean, I can't say for anything about the owner, but whoever did this brake job doesn't deserve to be doing brakes. That's horrible. That's disgraceful. It's horrible. Okay, well, we need to get these brakes done for this gentleman and do a good job on it. And we're going to do a much better job than the garage that did this work. They should be ashamed of this. Wow. All right, that one is out. It also has a rubber bushing on it. So let's fill these bores up with brake cleaner. Let them sit for a few minutes while I clean up these pins. Pull a little tube off the side of the can. Put it in the spray nozzle so we get a little more control. And then we're just going to fill these bores up with fluid. Same thing on the other side. And we're just going to let that sit. Spray these down a little bit. Let them sit for a minute. Okay, now we've got a brass bristle brush. We're going to go down inside this and we're going to agitate all of the existing grease loose that's down in there. Same thing on the other side. Okay. Now let's grab a cloth to dump this into so we don't soak the pet trainer too badly. It's all black. All black. Alright, now let's get these pins clean. Clean up the pins, inspect them very carefully, look for wear. Got a little bit of a polish on here, but I don't feel any groove pitting or wear. So this pin is still in good shape. So we just need to grease this one up, put this back in a minute. Let's get the other one cleaned up first. And make sure you get all the way up the top of the pin too, because these will rust up here in the top and then moisture will get in underneath the boot and it'll get in here and it'll wreak havoc and cause rust and lock these pins up. These pins were locking up just because of the lack of lubrication. Somebody cleaned them off but didn't re-lubricate them. And this is where we want to use the wire brush a little bit, get some of that stuff out of the groove. And we get all this yuckiness in this groove out of here. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, we're going to use the Siliglide. And we're going to coat the pin with Siliglide. Don't need to use a whole lot of it. That's probably more than enough. And just spread that around the pin. Get everything coated. And all the excess and on the cloth. And we're going to go and put pin in and rotate it while you're inserting it. It'll help distribute the grease. You're going to go in and out a couple of times with it probably. Be careful of that little rubber piece at the bottom of the pin. Okay, pull it back out, work your grease back in. Some of this grease is going to end up on the outside. Push it in. Okay, now you got everything coated with grease. Go ahead and push your pin all the way down in. Be careful when you're doing this that your boot is all the way up. Now let's pop that boot back out of there, because you need this boot all the way up the top of the pin. And be very gentle when you're pushing this in, because if you push hard, you can push the sleeve up the pin. You don't want to do that, so you want to back and forth, rock it around a little bit, get it started in there, light pressure, and it'll once it starts in, then you can start pushing a little bit harder on it. Push it way down in, and then pull it back up just to make sure that your little sleeve didn't slide up your pin. And then go ahead and push your pin all the way down in, and make sure that your little boot is staying wrapped around the pin. The wrinkle on there, make sure that it's got a good vacuum seal. Push that all the way down in. Let's get over to the other one. Same thing. A little bit of grease. Work it all the way around the pin. Everything's got to be coated. If it's not coated, it can get moisture on it and it can rust. Again, get it started in the hole and then spin it. Distribute your grease while you're working your way in. Pull back out on it, not all the way, just enough to make sure that you didn't slide your little sleeve up. Now make sure that your sleeve is where it's supposed to be. This is really hard to pull with grease on it. Pull it back out. Make sure that your sleeve isn't in there. Make sure that your boot is up and over your sleeve as such, and that you got your wrinkle when you pull out. Okay, so now your slide pins are done. Now we're going to concentrate on these grooves in the bracket. Alright, now that we've got both of the pins done and in, probably could have done those last, but now we're going to start. We're going to use a composite wheel that we purchased from Harbor Freight. They're $3.50 a piece or so. We're going to use that to clean out these grooves. Now, it's also important that when you are doing this that you concentrate on where the contact points of your brake pads are. And in this case, the contact points are the ear only. Sometimes this flat landing right here will act as your pressure point, but in this case, the ear alone is the only pressure point, so we just need to concentrate on that. We do not need to worry about the tops of the landings, just down inside and the sides. So let's get these cleaned up. It will take time, effort, and energy to get these cleaned up, but the idea is you want to get the rust scale out of them as much as you possibly can. I'll show you why in a minute, as soon as we get these rest of these done. Now, if you're not careful with these wheels, you will destroy them very quickly. But this is basically what you're shooting for. You want to see the nice clean metal surface in there. You don't want to go taking down metal, and you don't want to leave layers of rust scale like what's on here behind. So we got one done, let's do the other three. the brake pads and the hardware clips. We're going to do a test fit. I couldn't get this box open earlier either. But there we go. We got 4 brake pads. We have 2 inboard, 2 outboard. I'll unwrap all of them. You got the ones with the squealer clips on them. And in this case we have 4 with squealer clips on them. The original brake pads only had 1 set. Now what we're going to do is pair them up and compare them. Alright, make sure there's no differences between any of them other than the little chrome tab. They're exactly the same, so we're going to 1 set on each side. That way they're made up like this. And because they work out this way, it doesn't matter which side's which. We just want to make sure that when we put these in, the leading edge is where your squealer always is. Once in a great while it'll vary, but for the most part it's almost always on the leading edge. So we're going to set the other set of brake pads aside, the other side, and we're going to grab 2 of the hardware clips. Pull all 4 out of the bag just to play it safe. And compare them, make sure that there are no differences. Sometimes they will have a difference between one side of the car and the other. More often than not, they will have a difference between the top and the bottom, but not always. In a lot of cases, they're all equally the same, but you need to double check and make sure just in case. Sometimes these little clips on the side are different, or the clip in the middle is different, or the end right here is different, or the part that springs and holds the pad so that it doesn't chatter. Maybe those are different. But all 4 of these are exactly the same. Always make sure if there is a difference, figure out what the difference is and why. So we got these all set for the other side. Now we're going to take these and we're just going to snap them in place for now. We're not going to do anything fancy. Just snap them in place. Make sure they're all the way down and seated. There's no space underneath them. That one. Okay, and then once you've done that, take your brake pads and just put them in, get a feel for the fitment. They should go down in easily. Should fit in there. They should be able to be moved around easily enough. These this hardware is fitting in this bracket just a little odd. So we're probably going to have to do just a little bit of work on them to make them sit down in here properly. Because this one doesn't want to stay. You get them in there and they start to try to lift up. So they need to be tweaked. These clips need to be tweaked just a hair to make them fit in there properly. But the brake pads do fit in, which is the majority of the concern. We can move them up and down, which is what we want to make sure we can do. We want to make sure that's on both sides. Move them up and down. And if you can't move them up and down, you got to clean the caliper bracket up better, or make sure that the clips are sitting better. Because if these don't move, they're going to get stuck. They're going to get bound up, and you're going to end up with crooked brake pads again. All the little steps that make all the difference. These brakes are going to outlast this car. So I'll get the brake pads back out of it. You know it's going to fit. Now we're going to take the clips back out. We're going to anti-seize coat these landings. And then we're going to put the hardware clips back in. This is not the kind of brake job that you can typically expect from any kind of a brake service or quick lube. You're only going to get this from really good garages that really care about their customers. And the problem is this takes time. Time is money. Garages want to get your car in and out, and they want to do it in less than an hour if possible. So when they tell you the brake job only takes about an hour, go someplace else. If they're not taking at least 2 hours to do your brakes, they're rushing. You do not want somebody rushing working on your brakes. You just get it coated like that. Same thing on the other side. I already did the other side. Very good. A little bit more here, I guess. That looked a little thin. Okay, double check, make sure that the landings and the inside edges are covered as well. Those are the hard ones to get. Everything's all coated. Let's go ahead and put the hardware clips back in. Make sure they're all the way down and in. Now the caliper bracket is all done. The landings have been anti-seized. The clips have been put into place. The clips have been greased. The ears of the brake pads have been greased. We're going to go ahead and slide this down into place. And we're going to put our bolts back in. We'll start that one finger tight, and we'll do the same thing with the top one, because I'm going to clean these back up and I'm going to put a little bit of blue thread locker on them due to the fact that they had grease on them to start with. So let's get the grease off of this. Alright. And we're going to put 1 drop of blue thread locker on each bolt. Again, the thread locker helps to keep it from coming out in the event it vibrates. But most importantly for this application is it locks the bolt in and inhibits the threads from getting all rusty. Do not use red thread locker on these. Okay, again, 1 drop. Like that. And go ahead and thread those all the way down in, nice and tight. It's actually loose enough I can spin it all the way in by hand. You like to get everything as close to where it's comfortable before tightening everything down. And then go ahead and torque those down. Alright, now that that's torqued down, now we can go ahead and put the brake pads back in. Again, remember, leading edge is where your squealer goes. There we go. Alright. Alright, I get nice easy movement in them. Now let's do the same thing again with the front one. Hopefully a little easier. out very, very easily, which is exactly what we want them to do. Okay, now we got to start working on the actual caliper itself. All right, now we're going to take the caliper, we're going to slide this out here towards the front so you can see what we're working on here. And we're going to spray these boots right here with brake cleaner. We're going to use the toothbrush to just agitate and clean any debris loose from here, because when we push these pistons back in, the last thing we want to do is push any of the dirt in with the boot. We're going to clean this area right here, clean this area up, and then what we're going to do is we're going to coat this area right here with anti-seize, and we're going to coat the front of the pistons with anti-seize after we push the pistons back in, and the brake pad fell out again. All nice and clean. There's no debris left on them. Give them another little rinse. And over there as well. Now, as soon as that's dry, I'm going to push the pistons back in. Now we're going to take this tool right here. It's a piston, dual piston caliper. Pushback tool, retractor. Works like kind of like a caulking gun. And just go ahead and push your pistons back in. And while you're doing this, you're pushing the old brake fluid out into the bottle. You also want to make sure your 10mm wrench is handy to tighten that screw back up, in this case vice grips, because 10mm is no longer 10mm. So let's get that ready to tighten back up. We don't want to have any air trapped in the caliper when we're done. There's bubbles coming out of there. Alright, so that's done and tight. Alright. Now let's get the piston and the ears coated. Like so. Trying to get the boot, just the piston. Same thing with the inside of the ears here. And the whole purpose for doing this is it cuts down on the chances of brakes chattering or squealing. And it also helps to transfer heat around between the parts so everything cools down. Now we can make sure our hands are clean. And go ahead and put the caliper back where it belongs. And top bolt in first. bottom bolt in. Again, very lightly until everything is situated. Once everything is situated, then go ahead and tighten them down. Again, don't use the gear wrench for this. You can cheater wrench if you need. Alright, make sure you get your hook out of there. And let's get some more brake fluid coming out of this bleeder screw. I want to make sure there's no bubbles in here. So push the brake pedal down a little bit. Some of that old brake fluid down and out. And go ahead and tighten that down. And then we'll go over and repeat this on the other side. As everything moves. Alright, we're good. Pins and everything move. So let's wrap this side up and go get the other side done. It's going to get moved over to the other side. Put the wheel back on. Put the wheel back on. I use my feet to hold it. Makes it a lot easier to do. Put all your lug nuts on by hand first. Get them all started. The outboard moves fairly easily. The inboard doesn't move at all. Inboard doesn't move at all. There we go. That one there. Also nice and colorful and glazed. And we're going a little bit of rough on the back side from the brake pad not moving. So while I'm polishing this, I see all of this right here. You see all of that? That right there, if I was to put a new rotor on there, will cause the rotor to not make contact here or here, and it will cause a wobble in the rotor. So we got to get the rest of that off of there and finish cleaning this all up. There, now we got that all cleaned up. Let's fluid film it. That's the way it's supposed to work. Now let's get the caliper cleaned. Toothbrush. Alright, now anti-seize. there you have it. Front brakes, 2006 Buick Lucerne. We've given him the gold treatment. And now we're returning the keys back to the owner. Wow. Now that concerns me a little bit.